Hello, and welcome back to another session on our Monday Life. My name is Maureen Chiana, and this is a session I do every Monday with ladies in the Mindsight Women's Network, where we go deep and talk a lot about science, about faith, about leadership, and emotional intelligence. So, if this is your first time with us, I hope you would keep coming back. But to do that, remember to subscribe to this channel, especially if you're watching this from YouTube. Last week, we started talking about communication, how we communicate with other people, and also how people perceive us based on how we are wired. Now, the last week I couldn't show the slides, so I'm going to go back a bit on what we did last week and show a few slides so that it can, you understand what part of the brain I'm talking about. The good thing about our brain is that we are created in such a way that depending on how we wire our brain, depending on what we're exposed to, depending on what we continue to process, it creates an action that enables us. If we keep repeating that action, creates a behavior pattern. And that's what a lot of people will refer to as personality. But now that we know that our brain can keep adapting all our life, I want us to focus on behavior patterns, because these patterns that are formed that we call personality, we can actually change. Personality, it comes as something that is fixed, something that you have no control over. But we know that we can actually change the way our brain is wired. So that means we can change the way we think, we can change our behavior patterns, which then means that we can change how we make decisions and how we communicate with other people. What we do know is that you can't change any other person. The only person you can change is yourself. So based on that, what then becomes important is, who are the people you're interacting with? Who are the people that you're associating with? Because what we do as human beings is we communicate the way we are, which makes sense. But what we want to do is to communicate so that the person or people that we're communicating with actually understand us. So that means that we've got to take time to understand people. We've got to take time to really understand the people we are communicating with. And as a leader, that would be people in your team. That would be people you work with, people you interact with within the team and also outside your team. It could be as a business person or an entrepreneur, your customers, your clients, or potential customers and clients, or staff that you work with as well. In relationships, it could be anyone. It could be your children, it could be your spouse, it could be relations, siblings, and all that. But the thing to remember is that we all communicate differently based on how we have wired our brain over time. I won't be going into too much detail about the brain wiring today. If you want to look at that, I've talked a lot on that on YouTube, but also in the academy. So if you want to know more, check out those and you'll get a lot more information. So today, I'm going to share my screen and then I'll take us back to what we were looking at last week. So share screen. So this is what we're looking at last week. So this symbolizes the brain. And I use the PRISM Brain Mapping diagnostic to do this. It's a diagnostic that I use all the time with all the clients I have, especially coaching clients. I always start this first with them because it just helps us understand who the person is. If I start asking questions, you are going, you will answer me from your conscious brain based on what you feel I want to hear or what you even believe about yourself. But what's in your subconscious is truly who you are, because that is what comes out in your behavior pattern. And this is what the PRISM Brain Mapping diagnostic does. So looking at it here, you can see from the right-hand side of the brain, you've got the green area. Now, the brain, what this diagnostic does is that it splits the brain into four. So you've got the frontal and then the back and then split across. And I tend to I'll use this as well to explain what I'm talking about in terms of the brain. So split across the middle where you have the hemisphere and then across here. What we discussed last week is that we've got receptors all around the brain, but you tend to have more of these receptors in specific areas of the brain. So what you have is that we've got more dopamine receptors at the frontal part of our brain. And when you activate any of these areas more, then what you have is that you carry out actions unique to that receptor. And the more you wire a particular area, the more you're carrying out actions relative to those receptors. And that's what people will see, or you will see, and then say it's your personality or behavior pattern. So the frontal part of the brain, we have the dopamine. And then the back right part, we've got at the back here, we've got estrogen. So that's the blue area. And then you've got testosterone, which is the red. And then we've got serotonin, which we refer to as the gold. So based on this, each of them have unique actions or behavior patterns that you tend to symbolize. Now, as human beings, you will notice that we will wire all parts of our brain, but there will be specific areas that you tend to slant towards to based on your upbringing, exposure, life, basically. So what we're going to be looking at is, based on you, how you've wired yourself, but also the people that you're interacting with. That's what we're really going to be looking at. So you can see here the dopamine. You've got creativity, being imaginative, persuasive. And then in the blue, which is the estrogen, you've got kind, patient, caring. And then you've got the same with the red and then the gold.
We've all battled crossroads, wrestled with traumas, and been shadowed by negative pasts. Imagine a way to rewire, reset, and rise. This isn't mere imagination, it's reality. Our membership program interweaves scripture, emotional intelligence, and groundbreaking neuroscience to eliminate limiting beliefs and fortify you in the unwavering confidence of your identity in Christ. Those past traumas, they will no longer dominate your emotions or decisions. Sands of time are slipping. Do something for you. Join the Mindsight Women's Network today.
What I'm going to take us to now is just looking at more of the behavior patterns that are associated with these different areas as well. Now, the gold part, the green, which is the dopamine, you tend to find that it's that frontal part of the brain, which is to do with visualizing, which is to do with being able to visualize into the future. So you tend to find that they're very visionary and they have that lateral thinking and not wanting to be confined into one area. So you can just look at this slide and see the different behavior patterns that are associated with the different areas. And then when we then move on to looking at the lateral area, you find that, let me do this. Yeah. You find that the gold area and the blue area, we tend to refer to as discerning. They tend to be very low risk takers and they tend to not like change. So you can see the gold and the blue. So very low risk, slower to make decisions because of that. So if you identify your own behavior pattern, and you can do this from what I've shown you, even though it won't be very accurate. The honest truth, if you want to really get an accurate picture, let me know, and then I can talk to you about doing the questionnaire. Then you get a better picture of who you are, and it then helps you when we go through the analysis to identify people that you're relating with. So you tend to find that when people have wired the gold area, so that's the serotonin and estrogen area, they tend to be low risk takers and they tend to make decisions much slower. And I'm going to go into a bit of more details. This is called the descending axis. Then we've got the dynamic axis. And then you have the testosterone and then the green, which is the, the creative area. And you find that these two make decisions really fast. They are the kind of people that are so fast to make decisions, and the green more so that they can make impulsive decisions without thinking. The descending, so that's the gold and the blue, tend to be slower. So they like slow pace, so they like taking their time before they make a decision. While the green and the red are so fast. It's action, 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 movement. Let's do this. Very dynamic, and they're the ones that make decisions quite quickly. Now, you could ask the question is, which is an advantage? Is it an advantage to be slow? Is it an advantage to be faster? That depends on the situation, obviously. And also, there are times to make fast decisions, there are times to make slow decisions. The interesting thing about the way we wire our brains or wire ourselves over time is that when you wire a particular area quite high, so if you wire it over the 75th percentile, you find that that strength becomes a weakness. So something like with the gold, where you're very analytical, you take your time to make decisions, or you really like evaluating things, looking at the pros and cons. The problem is when you wire that part very high over the 75th percentile, it becomes a weakness. You might find yourself stuck in perfectionism. Wanting everything to be perfect. And that can be a problem, obviously, because it then takes you time to make a decision. It then means that you find yourself missing deadlines. And as a leader, you find yourself wanting to or resisting from delegating because it's quicker for you to do it. And then you can pay more attention to it because you focus a lot on detail. So with the dynamic, which is the green, and the testosterone, the red, I tend to refer to them as varieties, the spice of life, because they like change, and they don't like things being the same. They get bored, that will get them really bored easily. So now I'm going to show us a table, and this table kind of shows you what the different colors like. I'm going to refer to them as colors, but they are behavior patterns. Remember, they are behavior patterns. So, but I'm going to use the table to kind of explain how to communicate with people who've wired themselves this way. And that could be you, or it could be people that you work with. So looking at this table now, I hope it's clear. You can see with the green what they dislike. So the greens, they dislike routine, like I said. So that's the dopamine. Dopamine is referred to as the seeking neurotransmitter, the seeking hormone. And that means that it constantly likes change. It constantly likes, you like things to be different. You like, because you're very creative, that dopamine keeps you going. That's why you can get bored easily. If things are routine, you get bored. I remember when I started my career in medical lab, when I was working as a biomedical scientist, and I started working in the hospital lab, pathology. And I said to myself, this is just going to be so boring because you're doing the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. Yes, you see different results, but it's the same routine. And I literally ran away from it and moved into research. And for me, it was just the fact that you don't know what you're going to come across every day. Every day is so different. And that I just thrived on that. And so no surprise that I ended up an entrepreneur where every day is so different. You never know what you're going to come across. So with the green, you find that they don't like routine. They get bored easily. They don't like structure, which is the opposite to the gold. The gold loves structure, and then the green don't like structure. So you can imagine if you're a green, dopamine driven, and you're working with someone who is serotonin driven, that's the gold, you can see that you've got to be able to understand each other to be able to work effectively. So as a leader, if you are the one that is green, which you tend to find a lot of entrepreneurs in particular tend to be green, that dopamine, If you've got people who are gold, who like structure, you don't like structure, you've got to accommodate for that. You've got to be able to speak to them in a way that kind of gives them what they want. Dopamine, you don't like lists. But if you look at the gold, it says that they like structure, they like things laid out, they actually like things, lists. They thrive on that. Just give them a structure. So even though you don't particularly, like working with rules and you don't like lists, somebody that works for you, possibly like the gold, likes that. So, when you're talking to them, give them clear instructions about what you want them to do. Provide pros and cons for them, because that's what they like. That's how they thrive. That's how you get the best out of them. Because with them, it's really weighing pros and cons. That's the evaluative part of what they do. They like pros and cons, but also give them time to analyze things. Now, the green and the red, like I said, they're dynamic. It's fast, speed, fast. But the gold and blues are really slow paced. So if you're working with somebody that is gold, you've got to slow the pace, give them time to think. On the other hand, if we flip it and you are a different color, but working with somebody who is green, be mindful that they don't like structure. What they don't like is that structure. They don't like lists. They don't like schedules. What they do thrive on is freedom. So give them freedom to work. So if you give them clear instructions about what you want them to do, give them space, don't micromanage them. Because if you do, what you do is end up killing the creativity they have. So what, or stifling the creativity they have. Because what will then happen is that they start doing things the way you want it, and then you don't get the best out of them. And that's why I say a lot of times when we employ people into organizations, the way a lot of leaders lead makes people leave their brain at home and they come into work and they're using yours, because you're doing things, you're making them do things the way you want. And this is peculiar to the gold leaders. If you're a gold leader, that tends to be the problem. So back to the green, you can see that they are motivated by details. They like meeting people and they like busy, chaotic, noisy environments. They thrive on that. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and she was saying that she loves working where there are people, that she really thrives where there's a lot of noise and there's so much going on. And even though I'm green, but I don't like that. And I think that's the gold in me that is coming out, because I love quietness. I love peaceful places. I love working where there's not much noise. I can stay in an environment that is noisy, but I won't be doing my serious, intensive cognitive work there. So if we move on to the blue, you can see that what the blues dislike is change. So if you're going to be going through a period of change, what you need to do is to really explain or work with the blues so that they see a shared vision. They understand why the change is taking place. If you just come and tell them you're changing systems or you're changing the way things are done, that will literally freak them out. They will go either become resilient, or the flight or freeze that gets activated. That emotional part of the brain gets activated, and they will either freeze, where they really panic, and then you find that they start going off sick, or they fight back, where they will resist it so much, or they literally would run away. This is where you then start finding that they start looking for another job or wanting to escape, or escape by not coming into work, whichever way they play it. But it's important to work with them. So be clear and explain things calmly to them, and really ensure that they understand by getting them to repeat things back to you. Demonstrate patience with them. With the green and the red, we say that you're fast paced. With working with people, that someone that is blue, you've got to take your time, slow down, and really explain things to them. Be patient with them, give them time to process things. I had a leader that said to me, that she's been working with the team member, but he keeps repeating the same mistake. And then I said, okay, when we looked at her profile, she was quite high red, and when I then got her to explain to me how she was having these conversations with the blue person, you could see that the blue person would have seen her. If you look at what they dislike, you'd have seen her as being aggressive behavior. You can see aggressive behavior. It would have come across as aggressive, and that would either make them shut down or back off, or it could even activate their emotional brain where they really panic. And when that happens, you then find that when you're doing things, you're not being your best, you're not thinking cognitively, consciously, and then you end up repeating the same mistake. And that was what was happening in this case. But when she changed the way of communicating with this her team member, everything changed. Everything changed. And that team member was then able to really flourish. The blues, okay, they don't like competition. What that's really, they don't like competition, they don't like deadlines, and they don't like working under pressure. So when working with a blue, bear this in mind, because if they're working under pressure, that will also trigger their flight or freeze mechanism. And then that's when you tend to find that they start complaining of anxiety or burnout or stress as well. So it's worth paying attention to that. What they are motivated by, they are motivated by shared views. They like understanding what goals that they are working on, and this really gets the best out of them. You're able to really get the best out of them when they understand what they're working on, when they understand what values they're working on, their own personal values, but also the values of the team. They're motivated by positive people. They like helping other people. They like being valued for what they do. They like agreement. And they don't like conflict, as you can see. When they come in contact with somebody that is aggressive, that would make them withdraw. So when communicating with the blues, it's important to be agreeable and non-threatening. So even if you don't agree with them, explain that in really calm terms so that they understand why you've disagreed with them. That would actually cause a lot of anxiety, but it might make them feel undervalued. It might even impact on their self-esteem and their self-worth as well. Allow them the opportunity to speak, especially if you're a red. With a red, you can come across as very aggressive to a blue. So give them the opportunity to speak, because you kind of, have a lot to say and you're saying it. And then the green, if you're a green communicating with the blue, because your dopamine is really firing, and you're coming up with all these ideas, take your time and slow down, especially when communicating with gold or blue. These communication tips are also important and will help you when going for interviews. Research the people who you're interacting with and understand how they are. LinkedIn is a good place to see how, what do people post, what do they come across, or even call them and speak to them and find out what matters to them and how they speak, and that will give you a good indication. So same with blues, be supportive to them. It builds up trust in them. That's one of the things that they like. And then the reds, on the other hand, you can see what they dislike. One of the things that they dislike is indecision, excuses, small talk. They don't have time for that because they're very task oriented. So because they are task oriented, it's almost like go, 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 go. They don't like long explanations. And a typical example of this is when doing a presentation to a group of leaders, or to your manager or leader who is red. Don't, especially when you're blue, because blue like a lot of detail. Reds just want you to go to the point. Don't do a lot of long explanation, because you will lose them. You find that they switch off. They don't like self-pity as well. So with them, be logical, be realistic, give them answers and not problems. So when communicating with someone like this, focus on the solution. So if you're going to them with a problem, go to them with the problem and the solution. But if you go to them with just problems, they will see you as incompetent. Also, because they are quite dominant, agree with the objective facts. See what they're talking about, agree with them, and then you can bring your own perspective in terms of how it aligns with what they want. And, and this is why it's always important to really understand what people's goals and values are. Get with them, get to the point quickly. Don't fluff around and be brief and specific with the reds. Now, the thing about the goals is that they're very analytical. They focus on quality. They like quality of things. So with them, and because of that, they like trusting people. So they prefer people who come to them, that have clear expectations, that give clear instructions, that do what they say they would do. They can't be perfectionist. So you need to be careful if this is you or you work with someone like this. If you work with a gold, don't criticize their efforts. What you could do is give them constructive feedback, but focusing on how it will help them get better at what they're doing. But if you just come very critical about what they do, that would also activate their emotional brain and affect their self-worth and affect the way they see themselves as being competent. It can actually make them feel incompetent, and then they withdraw as well. So provide clear data for them. Don't break your promises. Now, I'm saying that it can impact on their self-worth. That is if it's someone that reports to you. But if someone that you report to that is like that, that will actually trigger their fight response. And that is where you then see either not agreeing or aligning with your manager, where you then see you falling out with your manager because you're criticizing them. And actually a gold that you do that to, it will create problems, basically. I know an institution that is actually ongoing like that. So it's really important to understand yourself, but to understand who you're working with, who you're reporting up to, or who you're working with down. With goals, I also say don't break your promises. If you make a promise to them, don't break it. If you say you're going to do something, do it, because that's the way they operate. They're doing something, they will put in their all and do it. Don't be emotional with them because they don't do emotions. Don't rush them as well. Like just like the blues, give them time to do what they need to do. And also give them time to analyze data, provide them with pros and cons of things. And that is the best way to interact with them, making them see the pros and cons of different situations. That will really help them. So I hope this really gives you an idea of the different colors and how to interact with them, but also helping you understand yourself and how you interact, or how, maybe it even helps you understand why you get upset when somebody criticizes you, or maybe it helps you understand why you get defensive when somebody maybe rushes you as well, or why you freeze when you're rushed. So all this gives you an idea of how you're wired, how you've wired yourself over time. The good news, though, is that you can change the wiring. You can change how you're wired currently. You can change your behavior pattern. And that's the whole concept of being able to rewire the brain. You can do it. So if it's something you want to know more about, if you want to understand how you can do the PRISM Brain Mapping diagnostic, reach out to me. If it's on YouTube, let me know, put a comment or send me an email. My details are below. I hope this helps you. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, put them down in the comment section. If you've not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do it now. It would be lovely to have you, watch the videos and comment, and it also helps other people see it. And don't forget to share as well. So I will see you all next week when we come back again for another Monday live session. Bye for now.